Hello, welcome to Engineering with Rosie Live, the first one in a while. So I was having a few technical problems remembering how to get everything set up. Can you please leave some comments to let me know that you can see and hear me? Because yeah, otherwise I will worry that I'm just talking to myself. So yeah, this is my first one back after a few months off. And first up, I want to know, what did you think of the new intro? I think it's pretty cool. It was put together by my new editor, Javi. He's been on board actually for most of 2022. I think the first one he did might have been the solar thermal video. So I have got a few comments about how the editing's getting good. If you've noticed that there has been an improvement in video quality, then he's the reason. So thanks, Javi. So getting some comments that you can hear me, so that's good. Yeah, I just need to start by thanking the sponsor of these live streams, WeatherGuard Lightning Tech, have stuck around, still sponsoring these. They make Strike Tape, a retrofittable lightning protection system for things that go fast, like wind turbine blades and aeroplanes. So these live streams wouldn't happen without their support, so big thanks to them. And of course, the whole Engineering with Rosie channel is supported by the amazing Patreon community, and that continues to grow, even though I've had a bit of a quiet period. We're still welcoming new Patreons every month, so welcome to all the new Patreons and especially all the old ones as well. So it'll be a little bit of a short live stream today, but I just wanted to take a look at some of the energy stories from 2022, and especially related to some of the topics that I've covered on the channel before. And I also want to hear from all of you what kinds of topics that you think would be interesting for me to cover in 2023. Yeah, but first, tell me, what do you think were the most exciting energy stories of 2022? Write in the comments what you think was interesting, or maybe what was missed by the mainstream media, and we'll see if we can we can chat through some of those. Make It Work from Kingston, Ontario. Hi, welcome. And we've got Peter Ross. I can't remember where Peter calls in from, but it's a regular. Eskil Eriksson from Sweden, another regular. Hi, happy holidays to you too, and thank you for joining me. Okay, so we have some topics suggested. Simon Leahy asks, seasonal domestic heat storage would have me listening even more intently than usual. So seasonal storage on a domestic scale, like a house that stores heat from the summer to the winter. I haven't seen that, other than, of course, like ground source heat pumps, I guess, is a way of doing that. And I do plan to do some videos on domestic stuff this year, next year, energy efficiency, and like design of houses and renovations and that sort of thing. So we can maybe talk about that in that video. Okay, and then QA Library has asked, China showed off a blade to go on their 16 megawatt turbine, apparently typhoon hurricane proof, and a company showed the world's biggest blade to go on a 14 megawatt turbine. Yeah, so turbines do continue to get bigger. There's been lots of announcements this year about bigger and bigger turbines, but as far as I know, the biggest one still actually in production, actually getting rolled out and installed places, is still GE's Haliade-X. So I'm kind of watching the announcements, but it's one thing to make one blade. And I mean, you can certainly make a blade typhoon or hurricane proof, but to have that be an economic turbine is maybe a different question, because obviously to make a blade or the whole turbine strong enough to withstand those kind of loads, then you need lots of material. So the real challenge over past years hasn't been to design something strong enough, it's to design something strong enough that also makes cost-effective electricity all year round. So that's still the challenge, and until we see lots of sales of typhoon hurricane proof turbine, then I don't think we'll know if they've got there yet. Okay, cool. So let's start with the first topic that I wanted to revisit, which is pumped hydro. So I made a few videos on pumped hydro so far. So we had this one a few months ago, world's largest energy storage, that was pumped hydro. And then also when we did the ocean energy storage, that also had some pumped hydro in it as well, which is a bit different. But I wanted to revisit some stories that happened this year. And this one I thought was really huge. Switzerland has just, I think they've brought online in the last, like really recently, they've brought online this huge pumped hydro project. And it is 900 megawatts, so nearly a gigawatt. It's 20 gigawatt hours, so that's 22 hours just full bore of full capacity electricity generation. And so it was interesting. I think there's some photos. The way that they've done it, it's not like normal pumped hydro where, you know, you just have your regular hydro dam and then down the bottom you build another reservoir and then pump between the two of them. This one, they actually made this huge, big underground cavern. So that's a little bit different. And I guess it's how they're able to get it so big. It took them 14 years to build, and it's going to open next month. It's interesting. It's done differently in Europe compared to Australia or the US or some, I don't know, other countries. Europe, I do find that they're often good at thinking like really long term and doing these big long projects that, you know, if you look at the payback for pumped hydro, sometimes it's not that fast, but because they last for so long, then you can end up with really cheap energy. But anyway, this huge amount of capacity is really going to help for bringing on a lot more renewables in all the rest of Europe, because it's all pretty interconnected. So that's going to help a lot. I think that's pretty cool. I'd love to go visit that. Okay, and so the next pumped hydro story that I wanted to talk about was what I think is the future of pumped hydro, and it's what I talked about in the video that I made, and that's off-river pumped hydro. And there's been this announcement in Australia, a new one, Phoenix Pumped Hydro, which is near Mudgee, which is in rural New South Wales. So this is the ACT, Canberra, where I live, and Sydney's up here, I guess. And then inland a bit, we've got this renewable energy zone. So that's something that I don't know if it's unique to Australia, but we're starting to get into them in a big way. You make new renewable energy projects in zones where it's kind of all going to fit together well. So, you know, the good wind resources and the empty land where you can put a lot of solar panels, it's usually not located right next to population centres or industrial centres where people need the electricity. So if you want to build one project way out in the middle of nowhere, then you're going to have a lot of, you know, expensive transmission that project has to cover on its own. And so these new renewable energy zones, they're aiming to kind of get some benefit by locating all these projects close together. And the other thing is that you can hopefully get better community support that way. So first, by locating the projects where communities want them, and secondly, by, you know, just minimizing the number of people that you have to get on board. You can kind of get, you know, a lot of things happening in one place, get people understanding what the benefits are going to be to their community, and minimizing just, you know, having heaps of small projects everywhere. It's better to, you know, combine a few things together. So there's quite a few wind and solar, and there's also some battery projects as well planned for this area. And then near this lake, Burrendong, they're going to do this new pumped hydro project, and it is 800 megawatts and 12 hours, so 9.6 gigawatt hours. So that's pretty significant. They haven't started building it yet, but it is supposed to be operational in 2030. And so you can see here a schematic of how it's going to work. You got the lower reservoir and the upper reservoir. It's off river, so there's no river ecosystem to destroy, and you don't have to worry too much about potentially flooding downstream communities if things go wrong, because it's kind of, isolated in a convenient place. And so this isn't the first off-river pumped hydro project. It's just one that I saw announced a few weeks ago. And I just think this is really indicative of how we're going to move. And I know whenever I talk about battery storage, or whenever anybody talks about battery storage on social media, you seem to get about 90% of the comments of people trying to extrapolate how many batteries you would need to, fill in a 3-week long Dunkelflaut, or, something like that, a 3-week long period where there's no wind or solar power available, which is a pessimistic assumption to start with. But it's also, that's not the way that it's going to happen. It's going to happen that we have batteries, definitely going to have lots of big batteries for filling in short gaps, but the long stuff, I think it's going to be done with pumped hydro. So yeah, those couple of projects are like 10, 12, or the Swiss project's 22 hours at full bore. But of course, you don't have to run flat out either, because usually when you've got peaks and trough in your electricity system, then, it's going to be, you've got some renewables. It's not a matter of having absolutely none. And so, yeah, I think that batteries and longer duration storage are going to work in tandem. And I'm excited to see those, starting to roll out faster and faster now. All right, so let's take a look at some comments. From Simon, we have cool intro, but plenty long enough for a short clip. So I actually don't know what you mean by that. Maybe can you clarify so I can take that feedback on board? QA Library asks, have you changed your location by 90 degrees? I haven't. I just got a couch. That's the difference. That's what looks different in the room. And Margarita asks, do I know about supercapacitors? And to be honest, no, not a whole lot about that. So it's not something I'll talk about today, but maybe another time. Social downclimb. I'm very interested in Australian battery manufacturing. Personally biased, of course. I am also personally biased. I do work for a company that's involved in mineral processing in Australia, and one of the reasons why I was really excited to take that on was because I'm just so keen for Australia to start taking advantage of some of the natural resources, and then value adding a little bit. At the moment we supply so much of the world's minerals, and then we just send it elsewhere for processing, and we could be doing a lot better than that. And so that's definitely something I'll talk about more, maybe not today, but I would like to make more videos on that topic. Got a comment from Smooth Jamie. The last video about thermal bricks was interesting. Thanks. I thought that was really interesting too. And those guys are MGA Thermal. They're moving pretty fast, I think. So we should be able to update, in a year's time about what pilot projects they have implemented. I would really like to be able to, tell you this time next year, there's physical projects happening now. All right. Got lots of other comments about topics, which is awesome. I'll go through a few now, and then leave some for the end and some for just suggestions for topics later on. So QA Library saying maybe China 16 megawatt turbine and then new blades. So one idea that I did have for videos over the next year is doing a bit more on wind turbine blade, like design, manufacturing, testing, recycling, all those sorts of things. I'm not sure. This is my background. My PhD was on blade structural design, and then I worked in a manufacturer for quite a while. And so I'm really interested in all the details, but I'm not sure how much you guys want to hear, like the real details about what the challenges are to make a really long wind turbine blade, or even to know how they're made. I don't know if that's something that people know. The testing, I do also want to do one on the lightning protection of wind turbines, because I think that that's really interesting, and that's something that I was really fascinated to learn when I started working for the manufacturer, just how important lightning protection is to wind turbine blades. It kind of drives all other aspects of the blade design to a certain extent. So let me know how many videos you reckon you could tolerate on wind turbine blades, and I'll see if I can hit the sweet spot, not go into too much depth that everyone gets bored by it. Okay, here's a question from Patrick B. What happened to the 50 megawatt SUMR wind turbine reported on 2016? That's not something that I am aware of, so I will have to look into that. 50 megawatts seems like it should be a few years away, given that we're, like somewhere around 15-ish is where announcements are coming out at the moment. I could imagine that someone would plausibly have an 18, maybe 20 megawatt turbine happening. 50 megawatts is something that I believe we could do if we really wanted to, but I think it would just be really expensive and make really expensive electricity, and I can't see that it's actually a practical purpose. But yeah, they do make good announcements. We have the world's largest wind turbine kind of press releases that happen every few months. My thoughts on diffuser augmented wind turbines. I don't know if I'll make a video on that. I know that the videos like that are always really popular, but I actually get a little bit sick of making videos about technologies that I don't think are going anywhere. But this one, the future of wind energy that I did with Paul Geib, that one is the one to watch if you want my thoughts on diffuser augmented wind turbines. I mean, it works. You can technically beat the Betz limit and get more efficiency, but it's been tried many times before, and every time they end up not getting quite the performance that they wanted, and they also end up costing more because, adding the diffuser adds so much more material and complexity that you don't end up with anything less, any less material than if you had just made a bigger wind turbine to start with. That's the better way to do it. Okay, and Reese says in the US we have Quebec Hydro. That's funny. In the US we have Quebec. I think Quebec might beg to differ about being part of the US. Although, I guess what you mean is in the US you have access to Quebec Hydro, which is true. With 35 gigawatts, it would be great to reconfigure this for pumped hydro service and link to offshore wind. And I'm sure that there are plans to do that. I'm in Quebec every now and then. I was there last year, and because my brother lives there and his family. So I had intended actually to go do a tour of Quebec Hydro, but then I got COVID and just spent all my time in a hotel room instead. So I didn't do that. But I'm sure I'll be back there in a year or two, and maybe I can do that at that point. But I am pretty sure that they are planning to do at least some of this. And you're definitely right. I mean, that's just such a huge resource that it's crazy not to take full advantage of it. I think by now people are realizing that with hydro, if you're not pumping, then you are only getting a tiny fraction of the resource. It's not about the electricity that's generated. That's good, but wind and solar can generate renewable electricity really, really, really cheaply. The real valuable thing that hydro can do that wind and solar can't do is the storage. And so yeah, you'd be able to get a huge amount of storage from that. And even if you just change your operation, you don't necessarily even need to pump, but if you just change your operation so that you're holding back water until, the times when you really need it, then that can give you a lot more value. Okay, so here's questions. I'll get back onto some of the other comments later, but I'll move on now to the second topic that I wanted to talk about, the update for this year, which is vehicle to grid. So it's been actually a while since, when was that video? Yeah, it was, I think a little over a year ago. I think it was quite soon after I moved back to Australia. I'm wearing the same shirt in that video as I'm wearing today. So yeah, I did this one with Björn, and I have noticed in recent weeks announcements coming really thick and fast about vehicle to grid. And one of the things I think is interesting about this topic is it's one where I definitely I'm way more optimistic than your average energy expert is. I think most people who have been in the field for a while tend to think vehicle to grid is too complex and it won't work and no one will ever want to sign up. But I have seen heaps of announcements from manufacturers recently. So Hyundai has announced that their EV batteries are going to be able to do vehicle to everything, so including vehicle to grid. And maybe I should actually define vehicle to grid for maybe not everybody has watched that video or knows what the topic is, but it's basically you plug your car into the wall when you get home, and then as well as your car battery charging by taking power from the grid, it also will allow some of that charge to go back into the grid in times where where the grid needs it. So it can at the moment, most of the small scale trials that are happening around the world are just to help with things like frequency support. So they will step in really quick and just take a small amount of charge to help stabilize the grid frequency. But there is the potential in the future, if you actually think about how many people are going to have electric cars by 2030 or 2050, and you add up the capacity of all those batteries, it's a huge energy storage. It's way bigger than, basically all of the pumped hydro projects around when you add them all up together. So people think, well, this could actually provide some really good energy storage for the grid, as well as providing frequency support. So until now, it was just Nissan basically that was supporting this, but now we've got announcements from Hyundai for their cars going forward are going to have that capability. Also Volkswagen and even Toyota made an announcement to trial this, which I thought was really interesting because Toyota is, in my opinion, the weirdest, funniest of all the manufacturers in terms of, they were the first in for electric with their the Prius. Was a big deal. Their hybrid, decades ago, right? It's been around for ages, and then they just did this. They just really pivoted or really dug in on the hydrogen part of what their plans were, and they continue to maintain that hydrogen's going to be a thing for passenger cars, or well after the point where I think nearly everybody kind of thinks that hydrogen's dead for passenger cars by now. Maybe that's not right, and if you disagree, then make sure to leave a comment. So anyway, I thought it was significant that Toyota is acknowledging that vehicle to grid will be a big benefit of electric cars, and they're moving ahead with trials. So to me, it feels like the momentum, and I'm sure, once, obviously the key thing that's missing is the actual ability of the electricity grid to take advantage of this. And I don't think that beyond some small scale trials, I don't think that that's actually rolled out anywhere on a, like a mature kind of scheme where any consumer can just sign up for it. But I think that we are starting to see a shift, maybe in the general public's mind as well, moving from, people have been really worried about the energy transition and the vehicle transition from petrol cars to electric cars. What's going to happen if everybody wants to charge at once? Then they're going to, crash the grid. And that's true if we don't have smart charging. But the flip side to that coin is, well, actually, because this is such a huge amount of power available, a huge amount of energy storage, we can flip that around and see this as an asset rather than, a danger to be scared of, or not just a danger to be scared of. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I think in the next couple of years, we're going to start to see some of these vehicle to grid schemes will start to become available to people in some areas of the world. That's my prediction and my hope. Okay, so I'll just take a look at some more comments again. This is a good one from QA Library again. The UK hasn't talked to other EU people, but due to out of control power prices, companies and the public have been buying up and installing solar at record levels. And that is a big trend for this year. The demand for solar is just through the roof. It's crazy, and prices have gone up a bit. I think even like 20-30% for solar installations because of that demand, increase in demand. I think that'll settle out though. If it kind of, becomes a stable level of demand, then you'll just get more supply come online, because it's not necessary that there's any huge bottlenecks. I think the main bottleneck is to do with the processing the silicon, and you just need sand for that and a whole lot of energy, and there's not many places that can do it currently, but there's not really any obstacle other than cost and time to setting that up. So I think that's probably, surely got to be an EU-wide trend. The US hasn't had the huge price spikes that Europe has. Australia has to a certain extent, not as much, and I won't get into the details too much because it's pretty Australia specific. I might get a guest on to talk about that sometime, what's happening with the Australian energy market. But I do see that trend continuing, because even if the prices go back down, which they surely will eventually and within a few years, and even if in your region you haven't personally experienced these really high power prices, everybody's aware that that could happen at any time, right? And countries are also becoming really aware that it's dangerous to rely on a single energy source for a large chunk of your energy. And I guess that, Germany and its reliance on Russian gas was the biggest story there. And I think that they've gone from, I can't remember the exact figures, so this might be wrong, but I think they used to get 80% from Russia and 20% elsewhere. And now within basically a year, they've flipped that. And now they're getting 20% from Russia and 80% from elsewhere. So I would never have believed it was possible to make that kind of a change that quickly. But I think that kind of shock has really spread to every country and every supply chain now. It's not just about gas and wanting to not rely on Russia for to be your major gas supplier. People are also worried about China controls so much of battery manufacturing and the supply chain of some of the inputs to that. Same with solar and critical minerals, rare earths, for example, to make electric motors and generators and stuff. And so you're starting to see programs from governments like the IRA in the US, and that Europe is also putting together some similar stuff where you try really hard to bring things back, critical things back into making them in your own country or from really solid allies. And I think that that's also going to be a trend for the climate, because, at the moment, over the last few decades, everything got offshored so much and shipping things around everywhere from the place where people want it. They're getting it from somewhere very far away where it's cheaper to make it. And I think, in my opinion, that's going to be the main way that we reduce shipping emissions quickly, is going to be to, re-onshore some of these things. Okay, so I talked a lot about that and got quite off topic, but yes, I think that is a big trend. Jim Arata says the Swiss turbine hull doesn't look unique, and I agree that pumped hydro is nothing new about it at all. It's I guess it's a little bit new for the last 10 or 20 years. Is the first time people have started pumping back uphill, but it's nothing. There was no technological breakthrough that needed to happen. It's not really cool, exciting engineering or anything. It's just using assets in a different way now that we have a different need. Because when people were first building hydro, over 100 years ago, it was mostly to complement other kinds of generation, because hydro is so adaptable. It can start and stop quite quickly compared to a coal power plant or something. And then in the 70s, when countries were building nuclear, at least back then and still today to a certain extent, nuclear is so inflexible, just really wants to just crank out power exactly the same amount 24/7 is the most the easiest, most cost-effective way to run a nuclear power plant. And so then unfortunately, that's not how people use electricity. So they would combine it with hydro so that you could, get those peaks in demand could be filled by hydro. And now our needs have changed a little bit again, and we've got lots of variable renewables. And so you need to be able to turn down and up power generation a lot. And once countries get to the point where they have overbuilt wind and solar, so that there's some times where they're generating more than what they actually need, then pumped hydro is, all kinds of energy storage are going to be needed much more. But the reason why pumped hydro is kind of so exciting as an energy storage and long duration storage method is kind of because it's not exciting. You know, the technology isn't exciting. It's not new. It's all mature. We know it's going to work. It's not like a big experiment. It's not like, waiting on fusion to happen to solve all our problems that we don't know how we're going to, fix all the challenges that they've got to go there. So, yes, agree. Not the most unique or exciting project, but the impact is very exciting to me, at least. Okay. Okay. I was going to mention this project, Social Downclimate, as long as it's tended and managed better than Snowy Hydro 2.0. And I was nearly going to put that in my, to talk about that topic in the pumped hydro section. Snowy Hydro has got heaps of problems. For those of you who aren't Australian energy nerds, like me and Social Downclimber obviously are, Snowy Hydro was this big pumped hydro scheme. It's kind of off river. It's connecting two existing reservoirs within the Snowy Hydro scheme, which is Australia's our mainland hydro electricity. It was built in the, I don't know, maybe finished in the 70s. It was after the war. So they're taking two existing reservoirs, which are on river systems, but they're connecting them with a big tunnel. So they're not on the same river, so they wouldn't normally be connected. And so it's kind of off river, but it's kind of not, because the reservoirs are on existing rivers. And it's challenging because it's in a national park. It's not normal to do such a huge project in the national park. And so there's some environmental concerns. But recently the engineering company that had the contract to, actually deliver on all the tunnels and everything, they've been in administration and have just been bought by somebody, and there has also been cost blowouts and time frame blowouts. But the cost and time, I think that most experts from the start knew that it was not plausible, the timeframes and the costs that they were saying. And they did some sneaky things like not including the cost of connecting it to the electricity grid in the price and that sort of thing. So yeah, I have actually been intending to make a video on Snowy Hydro 2.0, and I was up there in Kosciuszko National Park filming a year or a year and a half ago. But at the time I was kind of on the fence about whether I thought this was a good or bad project. And now I'm kind of, I don't know, now we've got these other ones coming on and so many batteries and other options. I'm getting less and less excited about the damage that they're doing to the national park for the sake of the storage. Yeah. Okay. Here's a good question from Chris Nash. What's your thoughts on solar farms in outer space with microwave transmitting energy back to Earth? I should do a video on that. I mean, my thoughts on it are similar to my thoughts on fusion, actually, which I don't know, nobody's asked about that, which is interesting because I thought that people would want to talk about fusion. It's all anyone's been talking about recently. It's yes, I'm sure we will be able to do that if we want to, but it is not going to be part of this energy transition. It might be the next one. In 2100, we might be able to pull out all those solar farms and wind farms and, rewild all those areas, which would be great, and replace it with outer space solar farms or with fusion reactors. But I'm not thinking about it too much day to day because it can't possibly be ready in time for this energy transition. And yeah, unfortunately, this energy transition, it is going to be about the boring technologies. And I don't know, I don't find wind energy and solar power boring, but they've certainly been around for a while, and it's been decades since we, conquered the really important technical challenges, overcame those. Pumped hydro and other technologies been around for ages. I guess lithium-ion batteries are more recent, but it's still been, 30 years since the first mobile phones with lithium-ion batteries came out. So that's not super, super new either. I know people love to get to talk about brand new technologies and to think that, you know, something bold and exciting like an outer space solar farm is going to solve climate change. But yeah, I usually don't talk about it too much because it seems a bit like a distraction and like an excuse to not do anything now. Yeah. Okay, another question from QA Library. Australia News was talking about changes in biomass power and change in how green it is. Can you explain it better? So I think what you're talking about is that story that they have finally, I think there's a big push from the Greens and they worked together with the Labor Party to change the rules about what counts as renewable energy for the purpose of getting renewable energy certificates. And up until these changes, if you log a native forest, any of that wood that you burn for energy counted as renewable energy, and you could get renewable energy certificates for it. And so that meant that you could, for example, you know, just clear fell a area of koala habitat, or you know, there's plenty of endangered animals in some of the forests that they're logging around Australia. You could just shred koala habitat and get renewable energy certificates when you burnt the wood. And you know, I don't think that's what most people think of when they're thinking of renewable energy. It wasn't done a lot, and you know, people in the foresty area would say that that's like such a gross exaggeration and misrepresentation about what's actually happening, because nobody does log just to burn it for biomass. That's a really low value thing that you can do with that timber. So you know, they're logging it and they're using the timber for, I don't know, as wood, as you know, wood chips to sell to paper mills and stuff like that, higher value things. And then it's just the waste left over that they would burn and get, you know, a little bit more for it. And that all sounds well and good. But of course, if you're getting paid for your waste stream, then one, that's just like makes your project a little bit more attractive. So, you know, maybe there's one more bit of forest that was marginal if it was worth it financially to bother logging it. And now it is, because you can sell your your waste as well. And then secondly, you know, when the waste stream has a value to it, then, you know, you're encouraged to waste more. And so then, you know, you need to log more. And you see like a really good example of this where, you know, what should just be a reuse of waste and then ends up kind of distorting things is, if you look at in Denmark, they burn garbage to make electricity. And I think also in Sweden, and yes, a few countries in Europe are doing that. And they originally, the Danes were like, oh, we'll just get Germany's garbage. They pay to dispose of it currently, so you know, that's great, we'll get it for free. But now they pay for the garbage, and then also it's a big incentive to not recycle, because you need a certain amount of garbage to burn. And so I know when I was living in Denmark, I was quite shocked to learn that I'd been sorting my plastic into like at least three or four different categories. And I was shocked when I toured a waste to energy plant. Actually, I can show you the video. It was one of my very first videos that I did. It would be really funny to go back and watch it now. Here, this one, Denmark's Circular Economy Waste to Energy. This one, that's a waste to energy facility that I'm in that little clip there. And yeah, the reason why you have to sort your plastic into different categories in Denmark is not because they're recycling it very carefully, but because they want to have it separated so they can control the temperature that it burns at more. So if you burn the soft plastic, that burns at a different temperature to if you burn the hard plastic. So I think you have to be really careful about waste, and you know what your projects that use waste streams sound perfect and never are when you dig in deeper. I guess that's all I'll say about that. So yeah, I hope that answered that question. All right, some questions about the pumped hydro. So Martin Gallagher lives near Mudgee. That's a nice area. I used to go there to race bikes when I was a teenager. There was a big bike race in Mudgee every year. I like it there. And then Mike Klein asked, is that lake behind a dam? And yeah, one of them is. So yeah, this one's got a big dam wall, and then this one, I guess, I mean, if you just look at the picture, it looks like it's got a little one, but it's not a river that's been dammed. You know, they've added they've added a wall to make a good reservoir to hold the water, and they're gonna fill them with water from this lake, and then I guess it's gonna rain, but it's a pretty arid area, so they'll probably be topping it up from time to time with water from the lake. So it is a dam, but not in the kind of sense that you might be thinking. Okay, question from Rich. Should we be making lithium-based big batteries connected to the grid, or waiting for more economical technologies that will scale up better? I think both. So one project I haven't included in this wrap-up, one project that I was really excited about was there's been a big announcement about a bunch of big batteries in Australia, and I can probably find it. So there was an announcement about 8 big battery projects in Australia, and it's huge. It's so huge. It's 4.2 gigawatt hours of storage capacity, and I think it's 2 gigawatts of power. 2 gigawatts, 4.2 gigawatt hours. So that will increase by 10 times the amount of grid forming electricity storage capacity in the NEM, which is the grid on the east coast of Australia. So that's one of the key things, is that these batteries, they include grid forming inverters, so they can sort of take the place of thermal generators like coal and gas turbines that, their spinning inertia keeps the grid frequency on stable. So if you move to a whole bunch of renewables, then you start to see problems with that if you don't add in something like a grid forming inverter. So yeah, that was a big project that was announced that I was excited about. So I want to see lots more like that. That's what we need. I think in the short term, we don't need long duration storage while we've still got a fair bit of fossil fuels left in the system, because fossil fuels act like storage. They are storage, basically. That's what's appealing about them if you compare them to renewables. And then in the meantime, as we're ramping up renewables, less fossil fuels, we're using our batteries and the pumped hydro, with 10-ish hours of storage. Then I think we're going to need more economical technologies for the longer storage duration. In Australia, I think that we'll get where we need to go with just wind and solar and battery, big lithium ion batteries, or some similar chemistry combined with pumped hydro of the kind that we've already got. And actually I can go back to, I don't know if you watch all of the live videos that I do, but this one I did with Dave Osmond about his grid simulation that he does, about getting to 99% renewables. It only needed like 5 hours of energy storage in the grid, and it would be easily served by a mix of batteries and pumped hydro. But countries like the UK, or all of Northern Europe and probably Canada as well, countries where you have bigger challenges getting renewable electricity at the same time as you need to use it. So it's basically countries where their main energy needs are in winter and there's not as much solar in winter. They are going to need more long duration energy storage, and it's not clear to me yet what that's going to be. It could be hydrogen, it could be something else. So yeah, answer to that is both, Rich. Okay, there's a bunch more questions. I had one other topic that I wanted to talk about, the update, which is hydrogen. So I'll just quickly say what I want to say about that, and then and then wrap up. But basically, I got this update. Jan Rosenau, sorry. He writes a lot about heat pumps, and he's a good person to follow on LinkedIn and maybe Twitter as well if you're keen on those platforms. But yeah, he's just posted here, the House of Commons in the UK has completed its hydrogen inquiry and found hydrogen is not a panacea for reaching net zero, and it's unwise to assume hydrogen can make a large contribution to reducing UK greenhouse gas emissions in the short and medium term. They found it will likely have specific but limited roles. Do they give some examples? Yeah, it's interesting to me. The reason why I pulled this out is because I felt like the UK was one of those countries that really was on board the hydrogen hype train and, rolling out programs for kind of crazy uses of hydrogen, not the ones that's really well suited to. And so one of these is that, the government has said it could start mandating hydrogen ready boilers in domestic homes. And it would be feasible to blend some hydrogen with natural gas. But this, and passenger cars as well. So they're kind of, this committee, their findings are walking back a little bit on that. I think they are still pushing these hydrogen boilers thing. And I mean, for me, if I have to pick out, people sometimes ask me what I think the worst energy project that's happened recently is, and I always pick out a hydrogen blending project, which to me, I did a video on that as well, actually, with Paul Martin a while ago, and so rewatch that. He gives really good, where is it? He gives really good explanations about all the reasons why blending hydrogen in gas pipelines is just not a good idea. Here it is. This one here, about a year ago, quite popular on the channel. Yeah, so I just think it's interesting. The UK is starting to walk back on some use cases, and I think that other countries as well. I am seeing study after study after study showing that hydrogen for home heating is a bad idea and for passenger cars is a bad idea. And then the other interesting hydrogen news was this article from Michael Liebreich, who is a really good source of information about hydrogen or hydrogen skepticism, and he's the inventor of the hydrogen ladder that you might have seen. And so he's just put out an article about hydrogen transport. It's got a catchy title, but not very informative. And I mean, you can read through it, but his conclusions are that, just for liquefying hydrogen is just stupid. For liquefying it for transport is not going to happen. Then he gets into gas and gas transported in pipelines, which I think he concludes is basically the only way that hydrogen is going to be transported long distances. He does some calculations of, if you're going to transport by ship or by truck, how many more of those you're going to need to see compared to like natural gas that, people often think that there's a lot of similarities between transporting natural gas and hydrogen. And he goes through a lot of the details there, and then exotics, other ways of making stuff from hydrogen, and then transporting that instead. So like ammonia would be an example like that. So anyway, I don't want to dwell too long on that, but I just wanted to point out that's a really good read and good update. And I like his stuff on hydrogen too, because he evolves his opinion as he learns more, and as actual projects come out in the real world and show how the real struggles people are having, the successes that they're having. And so I think that that's quite a good source for that. Okay, so I'll just I need to wrap up in a minute, but let's just see if I can get another question or two. Okay, so from Simon, love to see a video on the viability of sub 10 kilowatt turbines for farm use, etc. See lots of vertical axis wind turbines. I wonder if they're all as useless as I think. The answer to that is probably yes for the vertical axis wind turbines. They generally are as useless as you would think, and sometimes a lot more useless. I mean, they're good for places where the amount of energy you get is not the main thing, the main consideration. If you want reliability and simplicity and just never having to maintain it is your goal, then that can make sense. So I I do know somebody who has tried a few different wind turbines on their farm, their off-grid farm, and has something to say about that. So I will try and do a video like that, but it will be a matter of when I can get up there to actually take a look and film that on site. Okay, Evening Echo says in-depth turbine blade design. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so that's great. At least one person will watch that. No, actually two. Nikki Marshall is also going to watch four videos on on turbine. Although it's turbine blades specifically, so maybe I don't have Nikki on board after all. Okay, Social Dan Cliver says wind turbine blades and lightning is getting pretty popular. Make a dodgy clickbait thumbnail and get lots of views. That's my plan, definitely. I noticed one of the videos that I did where I was able to include the word, where is it? Yeah, free. I could include the term free energy on the thumbnail, and that got nearly 100,000 views. I think that was the most popular video that I made this year. The other popular videos are all ones I made ages ago on vertical axis wind turbines. This one's up to 500,000 views now, and the quality of that, it's really it hurts your ears to listen to it. I fully understand what all the commenters were saying on that. Yes, so I do love when I can think of I do love it when I can think of a clickbait thumbnail and title that's related to an actual good engineering topic. So yeah, please suggest those to me if you think of them. Yeah, and of course this lightning one, it also makes sense because the sponsor of these live streams is a lightning, they're lightning experts, and they make the retrofittable strike tape. So that kind of ties in well, and I've got expertise on tap to help with that. Okay. Oh, there's so many questions here. I'm not going to be able to get to them all because I do have to move on to something else in a minute. Ian asked thoughts on a South Australia's renewables milestone. And I have lots of thoughts on that. I will need to do another live stream at least about it, but I'll just go onto OpenNEM, my favorite website, and show what the milestone is. So if we go South Australia, you can't see it all because we've moved out of it, but there was this chunky, like 10-day period where they had more renewables than they needed. So yeah, this here, the yellow is it's rooftop solar is the light yellow, and the more orangey yellow is utility solar, and then you got wind energy. And so yeah, there was this like longer than a week period where they had more renewables in their grid than they needed. And yeah, they are connected to the rest of the Australian grid. So they were able to export that. Purple is imports. So you can see, like they had very minimal imports in this period. And if you look at the electricity price down here, so this is zero here. And of course, it's like around zero or negative for that whole time that it's all renewables in the grid. So that was just really, really exciting. And yeah, South Australia, I think Australia is going to lead the world with some of the, going to a fully renewable grid. And there were announcements on that for Australia as a whole this year too that I haven't got to. But I think South Australia is, leading Australia, and then Australia is going to lead the world for that like fully variable renewable grid. But I will do another live stream coming up on topics kind of for the future. This one was supposed to be looking back, so I'll get more onto that. Okay, just check quickly. Oh, here's a good one, because I forgot to talk about that. QA Library asks, are you going to be talking at Fully Charged Live in Australia in March in 2023? Yes, I am going to be. So I was really excited to be asked, and I will be doing a few sessions, I think 4 or 5 sessions, moderating some panels. And I'm also hopefully going to be a guest on the Fully Charged podcast and an episode on the YouTube channel. So I'm really looking forward to that and getting some tips from that team about how to grow a huge, big, clean energy type community. So that will be good. I do have a discount code, but because I am unprepared, I don't have it with me now. But I'll put it in the description. So if you check back tomorrow, then you'll be able to get a discount code if you want. I think it's 10% off using the discount code to buy tickets to Fully Charged Live. This is so many good questions. I needed a longer live stream. How do laws preventing energy providers from increasing energy prices affect the energy transition? I have thoughts about that, and actually I do plan to get a guest on a live stream soon that can talk about that some more. So I'll leave that one for then. Okay, there's good comments about B2G. So yeah, talk more about that. Someone did ask me to talk about fusion, Timothy Val or Wall, depending on where you are. And I did talk about that. So yes, fusion is so cool, and I love what they're doing and the progress they're making. And I think it has nothing to do with the current energy transition. But I hope that I'm still alive when it finally, gets out there in the real world. I got behind on the comments, so there were lots of people commenting good stuff on B2G. I was talking about that. I'll do another update video. I'll see if I can go back to ANU, their lab, and talk about what's been going on. Okay. Mike Klein says the Swiss project is exciting for its scale and permanence. And yeah, I agree. And it's also, we were talking a bit about the Snowy Hydro project, and that's the reason why I was always kind of okay with it happening, even though it would cause destruction in this national park that it's my favorite one. I'm in there a lot. I love it. And I don't want to see all the disturbance that has to happen from this project. But it is just a huge chunk of storage that is just going to be there, for the next 100 years at least. And how much renewables can you bring on with the knowledge that that long, huge chunk of storage is there to fill in the gaps? And so I think it is, there's always going to be some impacts. In the Swiss one, maybe they had very minimal impacts since they've already got all their reservoirs in place and, they did their digging underground. But yeah, there is always some impact with any project that you do. And I think that if the benefit is big enough, then you can probably cop a bit more of the negatives. Okay. Stefan Frukia says, will flow batteries get a bigger use in home batteries? I'm not sure about that, but I have actually filmed some footage of a flow battery manufacturer tour that I did last year. I haven't started making the video on it yet, but I do plan to do that topic this year. Okay. Yeah, there's too many good comments to get to all of them. But I'll do another similar live stream in a few weeks where we talk about exciting plans for the future. And I'll read all the comments before then and try and make it a bit longer and leave a bit more time for questions, because that is fun to answer those. But I will have to wrap up now because I have to go record a podcast. So thanks everyone for showing up. I'll just get rid of that and get rid of that. So, we'll leave it there for today, but thanks again to WeatherGuard Lightning Tech for sponsoring this live stream. And they also have a great tech newsletter, which you can sign up for and get, the interesting stories of the previous week emailed to you. And also the podcast, which I'm about to go film now, which I co-host with Alan Hall and Joel Saxum. The links are in the description, and we talk about all kinds of clean energy tech news, with probably more weight on the wind stuff. In the latest podcast episode, we talked about fusion and about wind farms that are now starting to come with 35-year service agreements, amongst other topics. So, I mean, for me, that's huge. When I started in the wind industry, it's like 20 years was the standard lifetime. And still, if you look up the stats, so like in the levelized cost of energy, it assumes that a wind farm has a 20-year long lifetime. But yeah, now manufacturers are saying they're going to last 35 years, and they're backing that up by taking on a service agreement for that amount of time. So, they're on the hook if it doesn't last that long. I think that's a big development. I also need to thank again the engineering with Rosie Patreon team, and I'll put the link there. You can join us if you would like to. Got quite a big group now. I appreciate the effort that everyone goes to. They help me a lot with questions about videos. Like recently I did a sponsored video. I was unsure about how it would go down, so I got some good feedback from them about how that can kind of work. Also suggest future video topics and all that sort of thing. So join us if you would like. Thanks so much for everyone for joining, and I'll see you in a few weeks with another live stream. Bye.